Welcome to a series that ended in 2021, and when I scanned back I thought, you know what, I've still got replays for this series, I'll bring it back. Forza Motorsport 7 Xcentric Forza Racing series. Yes, here it is. Who remembers this series? A bit of me actually did miss doing these videos, I will admit. This has been one of my favourite series to actually do, because I was just able to enjoy some racing, sit down and then commentate for about 40 minutes without taking a break. It really did help actually for me to talk properly. Anyways, enough about the boring crap, let's get to the exciting stuff. So for this restriction we had B-class cars that had to have a positive displacement supercharger. Now, the car I ended up choosing is this, the Aston Martin V8 Vantage from 77, I think that's the correct year. Mostly because A, I really like Aston Martin Vantage, it's my favourite of the Aston Martins, and B, I wanted to give this car a fair shot. I was always tempted to build this car for some of the older restrictions, but I never really used it. However, for this restriction I thought, well no, this could be a perfect addition. So, to give you a quick rundown of the stats, the car had 557 horsepower. It also weighed under 3,000 pounds at 2,984 pounds. The main downside of it was that it was on standard tyres. Big ones, mind you, though, at 305s at the back and 255s at the front. So we had some nice big size tyres, but the handling was not the strong point of this car. The actual strong point was its top end acceleration, considering this had probably one of the highest top speeds out of any car here. The acceleration wasn't the quickest, but its top speed was immense, so that really did help it. Anyways, let's get on to the actual racing here. Race 1, we headed to Road Atlanta, the short circuit. I immediately had an AMC Rebel that was even quicker than me, accelerating, managing to get past me, no problems. There was a Hellcat that was stuck on the outside and just got absolutely mugged. Down turn 1, I had to try and make it pseudo 3 wide, hanging up to the S's here. I'm trying to find my way up the inside of a Range Rover. Now do keep that Range Rover in mind, to be honest, because that car was seriously competitive in this restriction. Huge props to Mpega, sorry, I'll eventually get my English correct. But whilst I balls that up, I did get a little bit of an understeer moment whilst heading up to these two right-handers here, which allowed the fair lane to get up the inside of me, but I was on the inside then for these two right-handers. The Aston Martin, whilst its handling wasn't strong, the brakes were actually alright, and the turning grip was passable, to be honest. But we get onto this long back straight, and this is where my Aston Martin came to life. Yes, there was cars faster than me accelerating. Yes, there were cars with a higher top speed than me, but I had both decent handling and a good top speed. You can see I just absolutely flew past the Land Rover. However, on this braking zone, that Land Rover seriously caught up. You can see it was on the rear corner of my Aston Martin, getting a little bit of a slide hanging out of that chicane, so I still had to go a little bit defensive against that Range Rover there on lap 1. Seriously, that car was impressively competitive. With a lot of cars here, I was absolutely impressed. Speaking of handling, we head to the Lamborghini Yalpa that managed to just absolutely blitz a fair amount of cars around the corners. It went round the outside of a purple GT500 and then a Valiant Charger at turn 1. Managed to sneak past the Challenger Hellcat with the wide body there at the final corner. Now I had to try and find a way past the Buick. The Buick being one of the fastest cars in a straight line. It was faster than my Aston Martin by a noticeable amount, but round the corners, very much a handful. You can see that getting a huge slide over the curbs. Lamborghini Alpa makes short work of it. By just being able to go past it on the inside of the S, as the Valiant Charger there has a little bit of a slide moment. I didn't quite pay attention to see if it was helped or not, but I'm not too sure. Anyways, around the right-handers, it was stuck on the outside compared to the Yalpa, and the Yalpa just made short work of that going up the inside. And this is where actually the problem began for actually a fair few of the cars that were faster accelerators compared, especially a lot of the older muscle cars. You can see here the Valiant Charger gets past the Yalpa. I mean, the Buick just absolutely pisses off. However, the Valiant Charger ran out of top speed compared to the Lamborghini Yalpa. So even though the Yalpa was nowhere near the fastest in a straight line, it had good top speed, so it just made it managed to get back past, sorry, the Valiant Charger, and almost got to the rear bump of a very saggy Buick Regal that looks like it hasn't slept in 5 years, just judging by how the rear tail lights there. But the Lamborghini Up had some insane handling, almost got the inside of the Buick, but it's going to try again at turn 1. It wasn't quite able to get the pass, but drew alongside it again through the corner and then would get that position against the Buick. However, as we begin to the S's, they got a huge slide over the curbs there, which did cause a little bit of problems as it was all out of shape for these S's, but against that Buick, it just had way too much handling, so it could not take advantage. The Buick was not able to take advantage. A little bit further up, you'll be seeing plenty of this blue, red and white Gran Turismo Mustang. As it's trying to go around the outside of the Ford Fairlane, this Mustang, being sort of a jack of all trades, master of none type car, it had actually fairly good handling, very good brakes, and it did have decent straight line speed. Again, it was one of these ones that didn't have a high top acceleration. You can see the Ford Fairlane absolutely being able to get the overtake out of that corner, but you'll see just later down the straight, this Mustang does start reeling that Fairlane back in. You can start seeing it here. It does start reeling that Fairlane back in. It's now going to be on the inside for the first part of the chicane, but if you can't get the move to stick, you're going to be stuck on the outside, which sure enough the Mustang was. But this Mustang had good levels of grip, so it was still sort of alongside the Fairlane, but the Fairlane had a little bit too much acceleration. Sorry, round the final corner, the Ford gets a little bit of a slide. The Alfa Romeo behind it gets an even bigger slide round the final corner, deciding to do a little bit of tandem. We're now heading up towards turn 1. The Mustang trying to find a way past the Ford Fairlane, decides it wants to have a little bit of fun with the sliding, decides to do it at turn 1, which allows the Mustang to get up the inside. However, it is still not able to complete the overtake, and the Alfa Romeo gets the pair of them on the inside, but stuck on the outside there for the S's. But it's got too much. Well, I mean, to be honest, I say it gets the pair of them. That is actually a lie, I tell you that. It draws alongside the Fairlane. It got past the Mustang, but it was not able to get past the Fairlane. Now, the red Camaro was starting to get involved in this battle. The GTV was still stuck side by side by the Fairlane. I think that's what it is. I managed to forget. Yeah, it was Fairlane. The Mustang made it 3 wide, was stuck on the very outside, but we managed to get onto the inside line. The Fairlane getting a huge one tyre fire and oversteer moment, heading onto the back straight, but still it held the position around the outside against the Mustang. But as we all know, the Mustang had a better top speed. The Yalpa was in ghost mode for some reason, and here is the Buick just absolutely steaming past the pair of them. Almost gets alongside. I think it actually does. Yeah, gets alongside almost the Alfa Romeo, but the Alfa Romeo was just so much better on the brakes. The Mustang trying to see if there was a sniff of an opportunity to get past the Fairlane. However, there just wasn't around the chicane. And unfortunately, it just bobbles the curve. Actually, to me, I'll tell you, it was a different lap. Whoops, I'm getting my laps all confused. God damn it. Anyways, the Mustang, yeah, wasn't quite able to get any sort of position. The Fairlane was having to try and find a way around the outside. The Buick going very defensive there. The Mustang sort of being in the background. However, there was a Shelby GT500 getting drawn into this fight. The Camaro dropped back a little bit, was then having to fend off the Yalpa, which was then having to fend off a very pink Corvette. I think that was the Hot Wheels Corvette. Is that what the one is? I think it is. Anyways, you can see just a huge battle. The Fairlane manages to get away a little bit. Yalpa having a huge oversteer moment, and then a big battle starts at this moment in time. There was other little battles going on, however this one was absolutely ginormous in this race. You can see the Camaro manages to get on the outside of the Buick, trying to find a way past the Buick, goes up the inside of the Mustang, I think tags it a little bit, making the Mustang get a huge slide onto the back straight. It's going to compromise it a fair amount down the back straight, as it's going to have a very slow run. The Buick, though, it was just not going to be able to be contained, gets a huge amount of speed, but the Mustang is not terribly slow either. You can see that's starting to get a little bit of a gap compared to the group of cars behind. And the Shelby GT500 as well, there was almost 2 sets of battles going on with this sort of, I think it was about 7th place, this battle going on. We had the front 3 here, the Buick, the modern Mustang, well, what was modern, and the GT500. The blue Mustang here getting just turned in a little bit too early, went across the grass, got a huge oversteer moment that allowed the purple GT500 to get past. But it sort of got separated into two groups of three. You can see that up ahead, the Buick gets a huge slide. The Mustangs now want to try and find a way back past the Shelby. After making that little bit of a mistake, it's going to be closing against the Buick through the S section here, and these two this group how it would work is that the back group would sort of catch up to it, but then this group would then separate from it. So that was sort of how it was going all for this entirety of the battle, but it really did get close. The Alpha having the position against the Camaro there, the Corvette jumping back a little bit, and in the background you saw a silver and blue Maserati Tipo there sort of getting involved. You can see there the Yalpa almost has a look up the inside of the Mustang, locks the brakes a little bit, but was not able to get that position. The Mustang was sort of still having to try and find a way past the pair of them. The Corvette the Camaro and the Yalpa just parted ways for the Corvette. That was the fastest down the straight of the three. This was a more handling orientated Corvette compared to a fair amount of cars here. Obviously the Yelp having a better top speed than that Camaro, so it would find its way past down the straight, or defending that position, sorry, against that Camaro. The Yalpa though was on the outside of this Corvette having a huge slide, but it was really compromised. The Camaro will then find a way past the Yalpa, and the Corvette that decides to go into ghost mode for whatever reason. Don't ask me, Forza 7 replays were fun. Corvette managed to get a little bit of a gap. The Camaro has a huge run on the inside. The Yalpa has an even huge run as well, makes it 3 wide around the outside and gets the pair of them on the uphill section for this very fast right-hander. That was absolutely impressive. The Maserati Tipo then starts to get involved in this little fight as well. The Yalpa trying to hold on to its position. It goes a little bit wide. The Camaro manages to get past the Corvette before we finish the S section here. So the Corvette is one to find a way past. That little Tipo was very much a death trap. However, it had very good acceleration. That was its main strength. The Corvette was stuck on the outside of the Camaro, would not get the position there. It was not good enough through the corners to actually be able to get that position. Would sort of have a little bit of a look on the inside there. However, it was not close enough to really make advantage of that position. But then we go onto this long back straight, and like I said before, the Corvette has better speed advantage than the Camaro, but the Tipo has a speed advantage of the pair of them. So it manages to get 2 positions, or pretty much going on the grass almost. Trying to find a position against the pair of them, and it's now going to be on the inside of the Yalpa, but gets a huge slide in the chicane section. You can see there how much that Tipo is fighting to grip the Corvette. Being that close actually disappears on the replay. But the Corvette was not able to find a way past it. It would be on the inside. The Tipo gets a huge slide. I'm not too sure whether there was contact there or it was just because of the crest, but the Corvette was stuck on the very outside of the Camaro and the Tipo. The Camaro getting the pair of them into turn 1, being on the inside. The Corvette with its superior handling would then be on the inside of that Tipo. Now at the front, it took me a while to eventually catch that AMC Rebel. And this was an incredible fight. We really did have a hell of a lot of fun. There was it took me a while to catch up to the Rebel being even faster than me down the straight, and this was on the final racing lap. And I had to defend massively against that Rebel. It had so much more straight line speed compared to me. You can see how much it was closing in at the straights. I was being extremely defensive there. I started to pin the Rebel on the inside. It was a little bit bodywork with how vigorously I was defending. It would actually draw past me a little bit. It will be on the inside for the first part of the chicane, but my Aston Martin was good enough handling, a little bit better than the Rebel, and I would get that position, but I can't rest easy. I still have to defend like mad. However, around the final corner, you can see I had a sniff on the inside, but it was too far back, and I would take victory. Invisible AK or Chris would take second in the Rebel. Impega would get third with the Range Rover. That was how competitive that car got. It got on the podium. The mid-pack battle, it would sort of go Shelby G500, then Buick, then the blue and red Mustang, and then for the second group, the Camaro would beat the Corvette. The Yalpa, I think, actually lost to the fastest car in the straight line, the Porsche 914. The was it Martini? I can't remember. Anyways, on to race 2. We head to the Catalunya National Circuit, following the Range Rover here that got in third place. Obviously start a little bit further back on the grid, and there was absolute chaos heading towards turn 1. There was just absolutely so much things going on. The car ended up in the gravel trap there. It was a what do you call it, Holden Monaro, I think that's the one. The Range Rover having a little bit of, yeah, there was a fair amount of contact in this one. The Camaro had a big spit sideways. I had a little bit of a sideways moment too. Because of this, I'll be stuck on the inside of the Range Rover trying to see what I can muster. However, I will not be able to get a position there. I then tried it on the inside of the chicane. It would never work. I got on the gravel trap and that slowed me down big time. The Range Rover having a good advantage at this track here, being on the inside of the 4 wide into this red hairpin here. Unfortunately, racing would cause a calamity, as one of the Nissans, I think that's the 300ZX there, would get spun out. It was really unfortunate as well. It was in front of me. I tried to avoid it, however I just went into the back of it, so that lost me even more time. But this Range Rover, with its good cornering ability, made short work. I think it was Martini, I was correct on the Porsche. You know, the Red Bull, Land Rover, Range Rover, whatever you want to call it, the handling, it was really short work. A lot of the corner, it really did play into the favours this track. However, the Porsche, it may have been overtook in the final corner, but it absolutely pissed off down the start finish straight. The AMC Rebel would then have a sniff on the inside of this Range Rover, but it was not going to work. The Range Rover had too much handling. Actually, the Porsche struggled that much through the corners. The Range Rover went into the back of it. Mount turn 1, the Lamborghini Yalpa is now getting involved in this, but gets a little bit of an oversteer moment going across the gravel trap. It didn't lose that much time, thankfully for them. But, you know, it did lose a little bit of time. This Range Rover still trying to find a way past the Porsche. The thing about it is, if you've got a superior speed car, then, you know, it's easier to defend. However, unfortunately, the Range Rover, I think, just asked a little bit too much of their car, got stuck on the gravel trap, and unfortunately would lose a lot of positions, including to me. However, it would then go into the back of me, giving me a hurry-up bump because it was that much quicker around the corners. It would then have a little bit of a look up the inside because there was just a little bit of a gap there. However, it was not enough of a gap. I had decent enough acceleration and cornering that the Range Rover was not able to just get past me, and we're now going to the slow chicane. You can see how much I'm actually holding up the Range Rover a little bit where it is strongest. Yeah, this Range Rover did not have the best of luck. It's 3 wide up ahead, the pair of us. The Porsche being the big loser in that, has to catch a big oversteer moment. And the Range Rover jaws alongside it, but it just didn't matter for the Porsche. It absolutely went down the straight, managed to get back past the Yalpa. The Yalpa having to be stuck on the outside of this Range Rover, but following the Porsche as well. It was going 3 wide in the turn 1, but the Yalpa being the big loser in that. The Land Rover, Range Rover, whatever you want to call it, managing to get the positions. Following again the Gran Turismo Mustang, having to defend this time. This was a little bit one of those ones where there was sort of 2 battles going on in the midfield. This one being the lower down battle, having to try and find a way past a Yalpa and defend from the pink Corvette there, driven by Ren. Yeah, there was a lot of things going on in a lot of these races. A green Tipo had a little bit of calamity. I think went across the grass and lost a lot of positions there. The Corvette almost managed to get the position by being up the inside of the Mustang, however was not able to do it. You can see how much they were closing in on that Martini Porsche just through the corners. However, it was being so compromised. The Corvette again was looking every which way they could to try and get away past this Mustang, but it was not available, especially when that Porsche was in the way. It slowed them down even more, so the Porsche you know, would stay ahead through the cornering section. Mustang getting a little bit of a slide round the final corner that put it wide. That allowed the Corvette to draw alongside, and like I said, that Corvette had the straight line speed advantage compared to a lot of cars here. I mean, it wasn't a huge amount compared to a lot of the cars. You can see the Mustang has the top end acceleration, so it may have drawn alongside, but it would not complete the position. Unfortunately though, the Mustang outbraked themselves, and I think locked the brakes at the same time, so it would go in the gravel trap. Only lost 2 positions because the field sort of spread out a little bit during lap 2. However, it would get its position back past against that Buick because of just how many corners there were at this track. It really did suit this Mustang actually quite well, having to try and find a way past the Yalpa again. I think the Yalpa went a little bit wide and ended up on the gravel trap a little bit. The Mustang would get the position against the Yalpa. The Buick trying to find a way around the Yelper. However, it didn't quite work, the Yelper being on the inside for this hairpin there. However, it was too tight of a line. The Mustang's got good enough acceleration, so I wasn't able to complete the overtake. However, it would be on the inside for the next hairpin here. It draws alongside, but the acceleration of the Yelper wasn't good enough against the Gran Turismo Mustang here. So, whilst it could draw alongside, it couldn't get the overtake to be complete, to be stuck on the outside of the chicane here, and it would just decide to drop back, play the safer line. And because of that, it did lose a lot of time compared to this Mustang, and the Mustang would keep the position against the Yelper, and then the Buick would just absolutely sail past it down the start-finish straight, almost having a look on the inside of the Mustang. However, knew it would not be a risk worth taking because it does not have the brakes. Unfortunately, the Yelper did outbrake themselves, and, you know, that was a big problem. Following the fair lane here, having to defend from the Camaro and the Alfa Romeo there. Because of this fight, we'll start catching up a little bit. The Fiesta that you saw there get absolutely overtaken, that was an absolute hellish car to drive. You can see there it was twitchy, it had a lot of oversteer moments, it lost a position, both the Fairlane and the Fiesta lost a position to the Camaro having good handling, being a lot more composed. I mean, the Fairlane wasn't badly composed, but did not have the handling of that Camaro, and it would gain 2 positions against the Fairlane and the Fiesta, but the Fiesta was causing absolute havoc for this Fairlane, just having great acceleration, even more so than the Fairlane, and actually being in the way, especially when it had its moments of scares. It would cause a lot of slowdown for this Fairlane. The Fairlane, though, having superior straight line speed, would manage to get past the Fiesta heading towards turn 1 against the start-finish straight. The Alfa Romeo will then start catching them up a little bit quicker because of all this fighting going on. You can see in the background, me and the Rebel were trading places. The Fiesta, having a huge amount of acceleration, tries to look up the inside of the Fairlane, doesn't quite work, gives it a tag. The Fairlane having a little bit of an oversteer moment, but, you know, it wouldn't really phase it too much. The Fiesta tries around the outside, it's going to be stuck on the outside, heading towards the chicane, gets the position briefly, however, just runs a little bit wide. That allows the Fairlane, with its slightly better handle, sort of grip, shall I say, better composure, to get that position back past. But the Fiesta would try and get the cutback on the inside, but was stuck on the outside of this long right-hander hairpin. It keeps it alongside, but gets a huge slide around that corner. That's going to cost it a lot of time. The Alfa Romeo is then having a sniff on the inside against that Fiesta, but the Fiesta's got too much acceleration. There's a little bit of a, well, very much a Hail Mary move, I will admit, against this Fairlane. Yeah, the Fairlane did not have great luck in this event, in this race, I will admit that. Well, this event in general, to be honest, it did very well in the first race, but, you know, it had a hell of a lot of work cut out for it. Down the back straight, both the Alfa Romeo and the Fairlane would sort of draw past the Fiesta, but the Fiesta was actually very good on the brakes. It would be on a very, very tight line on the inside for turn 1, and would use its superior acceleration to keep that position, be stuck on the outside for the next corner there, and the Fairlane with the better composure would then manage to get back past on the inside, have still very good acceleration, but the Fiesta was very much tried to hold on for dear life, and unfortunately just ran a little bit too wide and would go across the gravel trap and lose that position. However, the Fairlane's work was not done because the Alfa Romeo, would, I think it's a GT, I don't remember, would then start trying to hound it. A little bit further back, me and the AMC Rebel would continue to fight. The AMC not being the bigger fan of this track, my car being a little bit better around here just because it was better accelerating. However, that did not mean it was clear cut and dry, because this AMC had so much straight line speed and was actually doing a really good job of defending against me in this race that I was not able to get the overtake. And, you know, whilst those two were battling, we were actually catching, I think we were sort of catching up a little bit to the group up ahead. You can see that AMC is pulling out a nice little gap compared to me for a little bit. I've sort of had a look on the inside, but thought, no, it's best not to risk it. So I just fall back into line. I see a little bit of an opportunity with the AMC running a little bit wide, but I've run too narrow. That would put me on a sideways moment, and that would cost me a little bit of time trying to find a way past this AMC Rebel. It did not work out for me. But, you know, there wasn't really a fight going on the I think that was a Chevrolet there, Impala? I'm not too sure. No, not Impala. I don't know. Big boat thingy. So that was a lap down marker, so lap down car, so ignore that. The Rebel gets a huge slide through the chicane. That gives me the position on the inside. I managed to get that. I managed to finally get that overtake to be complete, but the I run a little bit wide. The Rebel almost does a little bit of a cutback, but it does not quite work out there. It sees a little gap on the inside, trying to get that car position on the inside, trying to slow me down, but it did not work. My Aston Martin was still a little bit too good round the corners and didn't have enough of a disadvantage down the straight. You can see now I'm the one blocking the AMC Rebel, having a good line through the chicane. That would compromise the car a little bit, keeping me that position. And now we come on to the start-finish straight, and I would actually start catching this group up here, following the Alfa Romeo, I believe. Yeah, this battle was still going on. You can see in the background, though, me and Chris were starting to catch up. This Alfa Romeo having a look on the inside of the fair lane, leaves a gap, and the Fiesta decides to try and find the very, very inside, and gets the pair of them on the outside. It was just how much acceleration was in that Fiesta. If they managed to keep it under control, that car was very, very fast. Really easy to defend if you had a huge amount of acceleration, but it was an absolute death trap. And because of their huge fighting, the fair lane trying to go around the outside of this Alfa Romeo, me and Chris in the AMC Rebel would actually catch up to this. The fair lane, stuck on the very outside, would almost lose the position to me, and however I'm now stuck on the outside. Think better of it. I did not have enough acceleration, so would just fall back into line. I didn't have to defend from it. The Alfa Romeo has a shadow bug there. Not too sure why that was happening. It looks a little bit weird when the shadow doesn't work on the front bumper properly. As you can see, though, through the chicane, the fair lane gets a better run, so we'll try and have a look up the inside, gets a little bit of a slide, and would sort of keep the Alfa Romeo pinned on the outside. They sort of go alongside each other, but my Aston Martin has superior straight line speed, so I get past the pair of them. The AMC Rebel wanted to follow suit. It would make it 3 wide onto the braking zone into turn 1. It would keep it throughout turn 1. Goes across the grass a little bit, but was not actually able to get the positions. The purple GT500 gets involved in this battle a little bit. The Alfa Romeo is still side by side with that Ford Fairlane, not able to get a break. I think there was a little bit of cars being stuck together there up this acceleration zone, but the Alfa Romeo benefited from that big time. The Fairlane dropping back a little bit, still defending from the AMC Rebel. So now the Alfa Romeo had to focus on chasing down me, and it had much better cornering speed than I did. However, I had the better straight line speed, so you know, it was easier for me to compromise the Alfa Romeo. As you can see, it started actually closing a nice little gap, but would never get past. The battle a little bit further back, the Range Rover was actually competing fairly far forward. The Shelby GT500 trying to get up the inside of this AMC Rebel, however was not able to do it, be stuck on the outside through the chicane, but manages to keep it there and put it on the inside for this next corner. However, the Rebel goes for a cutback, manages to get that position, and would go on the inside for the final corner, draws it alongside. However, the GT500 wasn't slow enough down the straight. You know, it was still actually fairly keeping up nicely, so not that the Rebel were able to rest easily. However, that was the end of the race if there was another lap. So the Valiant Charger, driven by Dusty, would take the victory. Edu would take second in the Camaro, and Rabbit, driving that Fiesta, would get third place. That was really impressive, considering how much of an absolute death trap that Fiesta is. It was really, really impressive. They managed to hold on to a third place. Our final race, and we headed to Yas Marina, the South Circuit, following again the Range Rover. Now this race had so much going on. The hardest part of this was actually deciding on who to actually start off on, because there was so much going on for the second lap. It was really, really hard to actually choose who to spectate for this one. There was so much stuff going on. As you could just see, it was just a sea of lights and colours trying to fight their way through the chicane sections of Yas Marina, going around turn 4 now. Following the Range Rover here, I sort of get a little bit wrong in the background there, clip the GTV6, that was completely my bad there. The Range Rover is on the very outside of a 4 wide into this corner here, and it wasn't even done there. It was sort of a pseudo 4 wide heading underneath the hotel section here, and it was still 4 wide as we go out of that corner. There was so much going on. I could really choose a lot of cars here for the first race, and there would be something to commentate about. There was just swapping of places and battles and rubbing and scubbing and things like that. There was so much going on with this first one. In fact, there was even a Hellcat with the wide body that was actually blinking out of its existence because the Range Rover was that far, was so close to it. But yeah, there was so much going on. The winner of race 2, the Valiant Charger, was sort of having a look around, see if it could get past the Range Rover. The Hellcat was very, very slow around the corner. That allowed the Valiant Charger to draw alongside the Range Rover, and would be drawn on the inside of it, and it would make good advantage of it. The Camaro as well would take huge benefit from having that open door, and would not take any prisoners, and would get positions there. Again, going almost 3 wide through this very quick right-hand section. The Range Rover being stuck on the outside still of a Alfa Romeo this time, but it did have enough acceleration. The Alfa Romeo going on 2 wheels, pinging off the side of the Range Rover, and it just didn't affect the Range Rover whatsoever. The Holden there, I think, just went across the curb, had a big moment, and it had a very problem. See there though, 3 wide yet again as we're heading towards the final corner. The Range Rover trying to find a way past whatever they can, but it was not quite able to get past the Camaro there, and it was having to almost find a way past a Ford Transit as well. Again, 3 wide as we're heading towards the start of the next lap. I then draw alongside, make it 4 wide almost, and then 3 wide again. However, I do outbrake myself, go across the curb, and I do give the Transit a little bit of a bump and shove. So many cars took advantage of it. I did as well. That was very bad of me, I will admit. Don't do that if you actually want to race properly. Don't do what I just did there. That is very bad sportsmanship. Yeah, so many cars took advantage of that. A little bit further back, we're following again Ren's Camaro. This car was suited much better for this track than my Aston Martin. Having to try and find a way past the Alfa Romeo there. Again, it was 3 wide, heading up towards the little hotel, and it would still be stuck on the outside, being sort of forced wide with the understeer of the Alfa Romeo there, sort of dropped back a little bit as the Alfa Romeo is now drawing alongside the Ford Mustang there. There was a little bit of an accident going on further behind, but you know, that all sort of sorted itself out. There was a lot of chaos going on. The Corvette would actually get the pair of the Mustang and the Alfa Romeo around the inside of the final corner. The Mustang sort of has a look on the braking zone into turn 1, but the Mustang would outbrake themselves there, so that allowed the Corvette to get that position back. The Alfa Romeo almost takes advantage through the first part of that chicane, was not able to do it, but would be on the inside of the Mustang, which allowed, once they started battling, it allowed the Corvette a little bit of free space, a little bit of breathing room, and it would allow them to, him to focus on actually chasing down the battle going on up ahead between the yellow Mustang boss, that Range Rover driven by Pega, and my Aston Martin. You can see just the closing speed of that Corvette being much better around the corners than my car in particular, and that Mustang boss. The Mustang boss being a very quick car down the straight, struggled a hell of a lot through the corners. You can see the Range Rover manages to actually gets past the Mustang briefly, then in the braking zone gets past it. I almost get past the Mustang, however I just was not able to do it. I was on a very, very shoddy line and would not get that position against the Mustang, and it will sort of lead on to a much longer battle between me and the Chevrolet Corvette. But I did have that top speed against the Mustang having a lot more acceleration. However, I was not able to draw alongside. I was just a little bit too far back. We'd have a little bit of a ping-pong effect, as I'd go back in the Mustang, and then would go back into the back of me, and that put me into the back of the Mustang boss. However, I got a little bit bad line over the curbs. That would allow Ren to get past me through the chicane section there. And once he was past me, he was able to start focusing, chasing down that Mustang boss. With the Corvette's superior handling, you didn't have to worry too much about defending, especially in this section here. my real advantage was the start-finish rate. That was it, really, for my Aston Martin. You can see Ren makes short work of the Mustang Boss through the hotel section there. But the Mustang Boss had good acceleration, almost makes it too wide, but was not able to do it. The Corvette was a little bit too far ahead, and Ren would keep that position. The battle towards the front, these cars here sort of had a clean getaway compared to the mid-pack, and, you know, would start running away a little bit compared to a lot of the cars further behind. A leader currently in that Ford Fairlane was being chased down by this silver and blue Maserati Tipo. The Maserati Tipo being a very, very quick accelerating car, but an absolute death trap, especially around Yas Marina, where the curbs around here are vicious. If you do not pay respect to these curbs, you are going to be pointing backwards in a very short space of time. So, you know, the Maserati had to keep that in mind whilst trying to find a way past the Ford Fairlane. Not only that, the Lamborghini Yalpa was actually liking a hell of a lot of this track. Yeah, sure, it did not like the start-finish straight as much as a lot of cars. However, the South Circuit actually has a lot of corners to deal with, so that did mean that the better handling cars did have a good advantage around this track. So as you can see in here, down the acceleration, the Tipo having a little bit more straight line speed, but not a huge amount compared to that Ford Fairlane. What the real advantage of the Tipo was the brakes. It was a very, very good on the brakes. You can see almost goes into the back of the Fairlane, has to drop back a little bit, not going into the back of it. The Porsche 914 was catching big time against these cars. The Porsche having so much straight line speed down the start finish straight. I think that was honestly the fastest car in a straight line. Then the Buick, then probably my Aston Martin overall. Anyways, though, the Maserati, you can see there, was looking every which way to try and find a way past that Ford Fairlane. Ford Fairlane getting a huge amount of oversteer moments. The Maserati spots a little opportunity here out of the hotel section, but the Ford sort of keeps it ahead and will sort of be a little bit defensive. It would be stuck on the outside of the quick right-hander, but would be on the inside for the final corner, forcing the Tipo to go wide around the final corner, but the Tipo would be alongside that Ford Fairlane, and, you know, the Tipo having just slightly superior acceleration would start putting a little bit of a gap ahead. The Ford Fairlane having a little bit of a look though on the inside. The Maserati, you can see there, was an absolute death trap through turn one. It really had a huge oversteer moment that put it onto the slowing down, what should we call it, tarmac-y bit. I forgot what it's not really AstroTurf. Through the second corner there, which slowed it down big time, but it would be on the inside, catch up on the inside of this double right-hander, then having a slam on the brakes for the right-hander before the hotel. The Tipo getting a huge slide into shot. However, it would still be on the inside of that Ford Fairlane through the little hotel section here, still on the inside. The Fairlane not able to get an easy overtake, and the Tipo would still be on side by side. However, it would eventually get that position against the Fairlane and use its superior brakes and superior acceleration to nab the lead against that Ford Fairlane. A little bit further back, me and Ren would still have a something battle. I forgot the term I was going for, so there you are, you can have that. Yeah, the Corvette being much better on the corners, my Aston Martin being better down the straights. As you can see, there is a noticeable advantage. And then you could just see the cornering and the braking of that Corvette. It was absolutely immense. Almost actually draws it alongside my Aston Martin, having a little bit of a look on the inside, but it was absolutely not able to do it. But out of the chicane, it was then able to draw alongside, but this short acceleration zone paid dividends for my Aston Martin. I had to go extremely defensive. I tried absolutely everything to keep that Chevrolet behind me. Probably a little bit too aggressive on the defending, I will be honest with you. However, I tried absolutely everything in my power to keep that Corvette behind, being on the inside of the corners, compromising where that Corvette was strongest so that it wouldn't compromise me where I'm strongest. Down the start-finish straight and these short acceleration zones. The Range Rover was in the background. It wasn't quite the biggest fan of this track, the Range Rover, to be honest. Me and Men's Corvette was just a little bit too quick for it around here. So the Range Rover wasn't quite able to take advantage of our battle, but you can see there, Men was able to draw alongside me out of the final corner, but towards turn 1, it would lose ground. It did lose a fair bit of ground, but the braking was so immense that it almost gained all of it back with just one braking zone. However, they'd get the second corner there just a little bit wrong, and that would cost them a lot of time. A little bit further up, unfortunately, the silver and blue T-Pole driven by Yeet would just have a little bit of a spin. That was leading, and would now drop back to, I think this was about, 6th place that T-Pole dropped down to. The winner from race 2, the Valiant Charger, was having to try and find a way past the Camaro. The Camaro being very good round the corner, so it was actually, well, I mean, to be honest, that Camaro started fairly far back. You know, it placed second place in the last race, and in case you never figured out or you didn't know how these actually worked, the higher position you were, you'd actually start further behind on the field to give slower cars an advantage, and the Camaro really did get through the field very, very well. You know, the Yelp was having to defend from that Maserati Tipo. The Camaro was having to defend from the Valiant Charger. Yeah, the Camaro just had much better handling than the Valiant. Not that the Valiant was terrible on the corners, but you can see the Yelp was actually gaining on this, on the Valiant Charger. But it was having to try and look every which way it would be able to get an overtake, but was not able to do it. So if you can hear a lot of itching in the background, it was bloody boiling in my room, I will admit. But yeah, the Yalpa was looking wherever they could to get a position, tried the outsides, inside of corners, but the Valiant Charger was not an easy foe to overcome. As you can see there, the Yalpa was not able to get a very, very good an overtaking opportunity. The T-Pole, a lot of the brakes though, because it was just that good on the brakes, did not want to go into the back of the Yalpa. The Valiant Charger going very, very defensive against that Yalpa, because they knew that the Yalpa actually had the top end speed against them, but they were far enough ahead that they didn't have to defend, so they were able to go back onto a more ideal racing line and keep their advantage against the Yalpa. The Yalpa, though, you can see there, sort of straight lining the chicane as much as possible, had a big cornering advantage, actually gained a hell of a lot of time and would almost get the position against the Valiant Charger, but was not able to do it in the end. We're now around the double right hand. You can see the closing speed of just the Yalpa. It was really, really immense around the corners, but it just was not quite enough against the Valiant Charger. And yet the Valiant Charger was really, really holding on to its position. Now at the front, the Ford Fairlane was leading for quite a while, especially after the silver and blue T-Pole had a little bit of an unfortunate spin. However, the Martini Porsche was catching up big time. It had so much straight line speed that it was a nuisance to deal with. You can see how much it was closing in down the start finish straight. It would spot an opportunity to go on the inside of the Fairlane. It would draw alongside the bang doors through the first part of the chicane. If the Porsche could keep it there, it would be on the inside for the final port of transit, so pulling out the way. It was a back marker, and the Porsche was still on the inside. Whilst the Fairlane was more composed and probably a little bit better around the corners, the Porsche was doing an absolutely brilliant job of keeping that car under control and managing to keep it alongside the Fairlane and getting that position finally. But you can see the Fairlane had that little bit more of a handling advantage, looking every which way, so manages to do a little bit of a cutback getting onto the inside of that Porsche. The Camaro was getting involved big time, and just its superior handling, it goes 3 wide up towards the right hand and forward penultimate corner. The Fairlane rubbing doors with that Porsche. The Camaro with nowhere to go, was sort of drawn to the inside, but they just knew that the cars up ahead were better down the straights than the Porsche, with its superior acceleration and straight line speed, would nip the Fairlane to the finish line. So Aaron, driving the Porsche 914, would take victory. Drive would be driving the Ford Fairlane in second place, and Edu would get the Camaro into third place. Yeah, this one was absolutely chaos to commentate. It was bloody amazing. A big part of me does miss this series, I will admit. You know, if there was enough interest in this series getting back up and running, I would, without a shadow of a doubt, I would do it. I really would get the series back up and running. However, you know, we've got the new motorsport to look forward to, so, you know, there might be more events that I do that might be sort of similar to this, where I'm able to get a good lobby and able to commentate over it. But yeah, it was absolutely fun. There is one more set of replay of those to go through, so, you know, stay tuned for that. However, I'm going to call it there for a video. I do hope you enjoy. Oh yeah, I should conclude about my Aston Martin. Loved it. Anyways, I'm going to call it there for a video. I do hope you enjoyed. All feedback is appreciated. I just want to give a quick thanks to everyone that did actually partake in this series. It was, you know, it was good fun. I will admit, I did have good fun racing with it. Even during the rough spots, but, you know, I loved it. I really would do it again. And commentating these was absolutely fun. Yeah, if you want to join my Discord, there'll be a link in the description. You know, feel free to say hello to me. It is completely up to you. However, that is it from me. Take care, and ciao for now.